we are conducting various lead college activities in association with IQAC cell of VPIMSR Sangli. Today, we purposely selected a theme for one-day workshop on how to write quality research paper, keeping in mind to inculcate the research quality among the students as to how to write the quality research papers. Definitely, today's workshop is going to help all the faculty members and as well as the students who have shown the keen interest in this today's workshop, because in nowadays the research component carries a lot of weightage and as well as significance irrespective of the functional area or the subject, either it may be management science or the computer application. So considering that objective, under lead college activities, we have selected the two themes, two sub-themes. One is research publication in reputed journals, and the other one is importance of impact factor, indexing, and citations. And fortunately, we are very lucky to get today two great resource persons who have to their credit various research contributions in different international, national journals in the form of citations, indexing, and as well as impact factor for their different research papers. So with this brief introduction about the lead college activities, now I hand over the mic to the coordinator of the today's workshop, Dr. VP Desai Madam. Over to Dr. VP Desai Madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. As you all know, today's workshop having two sessions. So let's begin with the session 1. It is based on quality parameters of research paper and how to publish the research paper in the reputed journal. Now, I would like to request Dr. Amit Sattika sir to give brief introduction of today's resource person. Over to you, Dr. Sattika sir.
The dignitaries on this virtual dais, Dr. Nandkishor Dhawale sir from PVPIT Budgaon, Dr. Oza Madam, Computer Science Department, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, Dr. R.M. Yellati sir, Coordinator of Lead College Cell, Dr. Mrs. VP Desai Madam, Coordinator of today's workshop, Professor Kalyani Salunkhe Madam, Co-Coordinator of this workshop, all the participants from different colleges, colleagues, and dear students. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all in this one-day workshop under lead college activity. As you know, the theme of this workshop is how to write quality research paper. We faculty members, we are very familiar how to write research article, how to get it published, but particularly now we have added the word quality research paper and how to publish it, how to get it published in reputed journals. Because nowadays this is a requirement from NAC. As per the revised framework of NAC, NAC is expecting that our research articles should get published in some reputed journals, particularly in UGC care list or having indexed with Scopus. And hence it is very essential to understand the components which now we will require in the research article in order to get them published in such reputed journals. Now, you may sound it very critical, but things become very simple when we will get proper source to guide us and help us. Today, we are very fortunate to have Dr. Nandkishor Dhawale sir as a resource person for this first session, which will be focusing on research publication in reputed journal. So before sir will start his session, it's my sincere duty to introduce him to you all. Dr. Nandkishor Dhawale sir is currently working as associate professor and having a charge of head of instrumentation engineering department, PVP Institute of Technology. He is having a charge of research and development cell and center of intelligent sensors. Sir is also taking care of institute's innovation council as a vice president. Before I move to his previous international job profiles, I would like to highlight his academic qualifications. Sir has completed his bachelor's degree in instrumentation engineering from Shivaji University, Kolhapur. He has been awarded with post-graduation degree of Magistrate in Applied Science in Mechanical and Industrial Engineering by Concordia University, Canada. In his doctoral studies on bioresource engineering, he has received his PhD degree from McGill University, Canada, and he continued his postdoctoral study and awarded with post-PhD degree from the same McGill University, Canada. Sir has also completed certification programs in Internet of Things, microcontrollers and interfacing, AutoCAD, industrial automation, collaborative robotics and auto-guided vehicles, 3D printing for Industry 4.0, and bankable project preparation of report along with other courses regarding design thinking, intellectual property right, startups, incubation and entrepreneurship. With his remarkable academic qualifications, he has associated with Department of Bioresource Engineering, McGill University, Canada. He had also worked as a member of technical staff for Satellite System Quality Control at MDA Corporation, Canada. During his tenure as an academician at PVPIT Budgaon, he has received funds more than 4 lakh rupees for different projects. He has established intellectual property sale at PVPIT Budgaon with investment of more than 4 lakhs. So far, he has been honored with 5 awards: Graduate Excellence Award, Walter M. Stewart Postgraduate Scholarship, L&D Stewart Graduate Fellowship Award, Graduate Excel Fellowship Award, and McGill Provost Graduate Fellowship Award. Sir has published 55 articles, out of which 20 articles have been published in referred scientific journals and conference proceedings. He has equally been excellent in the area of intellectual property rights with 2 utility patents from US and Australian agency each. He has been granted with 7 design patents and 1 copyright. Plus, he has applied for 3 utility patents, 14 design patents, and 2 copyright forms. Due to his remarkable contributions in publications and intellectual property right, Sir has been shouldered the responsibility of reviewer of reputed journals, including IEEE. Sir, we are very fortunate indeed to have you as a resource person for this workshop, and I apologize if I missed out some points from such a vast biodata. It was really challenging task to cut it down in such short span. And now, without wasting a single second, I request organizers to proceed with the next part of session. Thank you very much. Over to you, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for nice introduction of today's resource person. Now, I would like to request Dr. Nandkishor Dhawale, sir, to please start the session. We are really eager to hear you, sir. Over to you, Dr. Dhawale, sir.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you, yes, I already have the access to share my screen, and I'm right now trying to share my PPT. Is it visible to everyone?
It's visible. So please maximize. Full
Yeah,
screen.
is it maximized now?
No, sir. Please make it full screen.
Yeah, I did it full screen. Is it visible now?
No, sir. Please share the full screen.
Okay, okay, I got it. I got it.
Yes.
Just give me a moment.
Yes, please.
Okay, is it now visible?
Yes, sir. Fine, sir. Please, sir.
Okay. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Professor Yalati for Dr. Professor Yalati for introducing me. It's actually okay, because I have a big profile, and let's not actually waste our time now. Let's start continuing with the session. Thank you so much, um, everyone. Sorry if I forgot the names, and thank you so much, Dr. VP Desai ma'am, for coordinating this session. So let me start with number one thing is, multidisciplinary. So as my profile is, I'm a multidisciplinary person. I have actually did a lot of education and work in the areas of science, engineering, and management. And when talking about engineering, I've been part of chemical, computer science, civil, mechanical, electrical, electronics, telecommunication. But I am instrumentation engineer. So I did my bachelor's in instrumentation engineering, and from that was from Shivaji University. And I did it from PVPIT Budgaon. Right now, I work at PVPIT as well. So I'm an alumni of PVPIT, and I'm also an alumni of Shivaji University. So it's my honor to deliver the session for all my fellow colleagues, and also the students and the scholars who belong probably from the same university. So with this, the higher education must emphasize on multidisciplinary studies. And this is what has actually been emphasized by AICT chairman, Dr. Sahasra Buddhe. Okay, so I'm actually highlighting the screen at the start. And after that, my philosophy is what you think is what you do, and what you do is what you get. So always keep your aspirations high and don't stop to dream big. So myself, Dr. Nandkishor Dhawale, presenting via web to VPIMSR for a one-day workshop under the lead college activities in association with Shivaji University, Kolhapur. About myself, I've been already introduced, and today is March 4th. So let me directly jump to the outline of my talk. So today's talk, please stay focused. Everyone, please stay focused. There will be a lot of text that I'm going to be showing, and probably I'm going to be saying, okay? So in the first part, I'm trying to impart some knowledge, which is related to writing an article, and that also writing it for a reputed, platform. So in that first part, I'm going to show you so much text, and probably I'm going to talk so much. Okay, so please excuse me for that, but try to stay focused. Okay, because if you stay focused, something will probably go into your brain, into your minds, and eventually it might be helpful to you. In my second part, I'm trying to do the session in two parts, though we have only 1 hour, but believe me, I think it's possible, and we'll see it's doable. So in my second part, I'm gonna show you, I'm going to show you exactly some documents that are very essential when we are trying to write an article and get it published in a reputed journal or a reputed conference through the proceedings. So let's actually do it in two parts. And if you have any questions, there should be a lot of questions. Number one, when we are attending a session, there should be a lot of questions. Even me myself, I might have a lot of questions. Okay, and if you have any questions, I think this platform might be available, so you can type your questions on the chat, and there might be some person who might be observing the chats, and then they can summarize those questions, right? So since we have only 1 hour, let's not actually interrupt or get interrupted. Let's just focus on the delivery of the lecture, and at the end we can focus on the questions and the answers. And depending on the time frame allowed, I would try to answer those questions, or maybe we can actually do it at a later time in future. Okay, so in my first part, stay tuned with knowledge. In my second part, stay tuned with hands-on. Now hands-on, virtual hands-on, that's what would be the appropriate word. And then I'm also going to give you some helpful tips, and we should also know the ethics. Ethics is a very important topic, especially for management people. They probably even have a subject, ethics, right? So let's actually just focus a little bit on the ethics as well, because this is something really important. Okay, So in my first part, I'm going to talk about the prerequisites, the structure of your manuscript, the references and article types, title, abstract, keyword, introduction, methods, materials, results, images, formatting, and English editing services. Okay, so these are all, kind of theory you need to know, like, some rules, some principles, right? And then in the second part, I'm going to focus on the plagiarism check, the structure of the editorial system, the guidelines that are provided to the authors, the submission system, for example, like the editorial manager, how it looks like. Then after submission processes, what do editors and reviewers really expect? I've been a reviewer for many journals. I've reviewed a lot of papers. So I'm going to share my experiences here, right? Then, the decisions, taken by the editorial office. And then once the decision is in a positive manner, then how or what are the different steps, like, for the production and publishing. Okay, so we'll actually try to cover this. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay, great. So let me start with the prerequisites. Okay, so here in this slide, what I'm trying to tell is, when we are attending this session, I presume that, as already the doctor who introduced me, he has mentioned that we all know how to write articles, but now things are changing. So we need to know how to write articles in a reputed journal, right? So I'm considering, or I'm presuming that you already know, the different prerequisites that are very, very essential if you want to write an article or a paper or a manuscript. Okay, so number one, you first need to know paper, article, manuscript. These are somewhat like, synonyms. Someone might call a paper, someone might call an article. Now manuscript is something which is converted into a paper and article upon exception by the publisher, right? So paper, article, manuscript, these are all synonyms. Then number one thing you need to focus on is, like, what is the purpose behind writing it? Why you want to write a paper? You want to write a paper because you want to have it in the NAC profile as an institute faculty. You want to write it because you want to write it. Number three, maybe you applied for some research proposal. You submitted a research proposal for some funding agency to get a grant, right? So now you are done with the project, you're done with the report, and now you also want to, disseminate the results by writing a paper and publishing it, right? So there could be many reasons behind writing the paper. So you need to focus on that. Then who will be the target audience? Like, when you're writing a paper on your topic of research, who will be the audience? Like, you need to know that. All these are prerequisites. Then what are the target platforms? Like, do you want to go through a conference and then publish it as a proceeding, which is also been indexed in Scopus? Or do you want to directly publish into a journal which is indexed in Scopus or Web of Science or SCI? Okay, so who are the reputed ones? Like, IEEE conference is a reputed one, for example, right? So I have actually been in the field of agriculture. So we have International Society of Precision Agriculture. We have American Society of Biological Engineers. We have Canadian Society of Bioengineering. So these are all reputed, professional societies. If we try to present something in that conference and if we publish a paper there, these are also reputed ones. These will actually have a, some kind of a weightage. Now these weightage factors, these are going to be discussed by the next speaker, like Dr. Oza ma'am. I'm also keen to interested to learn more things from her too. So what are the different types of, papers, manuscripts, articles? So among them, there is original research, short reports, letters, review articles, case studies, methods and methodologies. So out of that, me today, I am going to only focus on original research or a research article, or we can also call it as an article. Okay, so from that, you also need to know what are the aims and objectives. Okay, what are the aim and objectives? Like, we all have been through school, especially in grade 8, 9, 10, we have science subjects. And when we have the science subjects, there are, like, some experiments that we do. So the experiment, when we do it, we have to do a report, right? So that will, what it will have a title, it will have, the aim, objective, it will have the procedure, right? So all something like those points are, very familiar to us. So aim and objective, right? Aim and objective is the most important thing. Like, आपल्या मराठीमध्ये म्हणजे सगळ्या भाषांमध्ये स्टोरी असेल, पण द्रोणाचार्याने जेव्हा विचारलं लाईक की तुम्हाला पोपटाचा डोळा दिसतो का पोपट दिसतं का झाड दिसतं का आजूबाजू सगळं दिसतं, तेव्हा अर्जुन एकच व्यक्ती होऊन गेले ज्यांना फक्त पोपटाचा डोळा दिसत होता. त्यामुळं त्यांना त्यांचं एम होतं ते फिक्स होतं की मला पोपटाच्या डोळ्यालाच बाण मारायचा आहे, राईट. सो एम अँड ऑब्जेक्ट इज द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टंट थिंग. And we need to be very clear what is the aim, what is the objective. Okay, then also prerequisite, we need to know about hypothesis, what is null hypothesis, what is the alternative hypothesis. So these are I'm pretty sure that many of you or most of you know all this, right? Then we also need to know, like, let's say we have the aim now, how or what are the different ways we want to achieve the objective, or the research study experiment, or if you want to review it, right? So we need to know the ways. We need to have some statistical knowledge and experience on, like, doing the data analysis and know the tools which we use to do it, right? So then access to text editing tools. Obviously, when we're writing a paper, when we're writing an article or a manuscript, the first thing you're not going to write it on a piece of paper, right? You need to know Word, probably you need to know LaTeX, you need to know many other, like, there are word processing or text editing tools, PowerPoint for sure, right? Then we also need to have access and know or have knowledge on graphical editing tools. These papers, articles, they will always have tables, figures, images, right? So how we can do editing of those, that is also very important. That is a prerequisite. And then access to spreadsheet like applications, like, spreadsheet means Excel. Obviously there will be a lot of data, there will be a lot of tables, and we should be very good at all these, right? So these are the prerequisites before writing a paper, before writing an article or a manuscript. We should check with ourselves, do I know any of this? Am I missing with any of this? If I'm missing with any of this, how can I gain my knowledge and or hands-on in one of these areas, right? So there could be many workshops conducted by many other organizers which focus on these topics. Okay, so it's not a objective of my talk today, so I will actually stop here. Now, the second question, what means by reputed journal? Okay, so what means by reputed journal? So reputed journal is, like, Scopus means the paper which we are going to publish. Is it indexed in Scopus? Scopus is an indexing system in which any paper that is published, if it is indexed in them, then it is kind of a reputed journal. Or as already the professor who introduced me mentioned, UGC care list. Okay, so UGC care list. Now this is a UGC care list for India. Okay, so that one I will actually show you. Then there is Web of Services, like, WS, or SCI, Science Citation Index. Okay, so me, I have experience publishing in Scopus, in Web of Sciences, and SCI. Now UGC care list is a very tricky one, and I will actually go through that. Okay, so for example, Scopus, there is a very, very easy way to search for a reputed journal. Just type on your browser, open your browser, type on your browser Scopus. The moment you hit Scopus, it will show you a page. Okay, on that page there is an option where you can either find something based on the name of the author, or you can find something based on the title or ISSN number of a journal. Okay, so here I used a keyword like remote sensing. Okay, and from that I try to find a list of reputed journal. Okay, now reputed journal, when we call it reputed, we have to check into these factors, like, what is the site score? How many citations did it actually receive in the last 3 to 5 years? Okay, how many papers are published in that journal? So how many documents exist on this in the Scopus database? How many of them actually were cited? Okay, so this will decide what is the site score. Again, you can click on, the source title, the list. For example, remote sensing. If I would click on that, then I will get more details, about the journal, and we will actually see all these points at the later time. Right now, let's actually move ahead. So what means by reputed journal? In short, this can be a reputed journal because it is listed in the Scopus database, and then it has a good site score, and it has a good number of citations, right? So you just do your research in the similar way. Then UGC care. Okay, so UGC care is meant by University Grant Commission, Consortium of Academic and Research Ethics. Okay, so in this, again, it's very easy. You go on Google, you type UGC care. Okay, it will take you directly to this site, which is part of Savitribai Phule University, Pune, means that is Pune University. So they have index, but what you have to do is you have to register, then you have to log in into it, and then it will give you the option to check, the list of journals that are available in the UGC care list. There could be like, two groups. One is group 1, one is group 2. Now, it's very tricky here because, many actually publishers, they will highlight on their site that, oh, we are like, UGC journal. Okay. But then again, on the website, you find here alert, list of cloned journals. Okay. So you go inside the Savitribai Phule UGC care list, and you will find that, maybe there are some journals you might have already published, but now they are actually not in the list, or they're kind of classified as cloned ones, means they're fake ones. Okay, they are predatory journals. Okay, so be careful, be cautious here. Okay, so when we think that it is a whatever UGC journal, but it might not be. So, but it's very easy, you can find them, okay, just by typing the ISSN number or the title, right? So we can again do that later. Okay, so let me go to the next. Now the last thing that you also need to know is, like, if you're going to write a journal in a reputed, if you're going to write an article in a reputed journal, you need to have a very good experimental design. You should have a very good study, a very good experimental design. In that, you need to have what is your hypothesis or research question, what are the aims of your study, what are the best methods for achieving your aims, do you have the necessary resources to carry out your methods, which positive and negative controls will you use. Okay, now this kind is more applicable, like, to people who are doing research in core science, hardcore science, like chemistry, physics, material science, medical, pharmaceutical, but for computer engineers, for computer science people, or for management people, some of these points, can be, tricky. Like, maybe what is your hypothesis? Okay, fine. But which positive and negative controls? I don't think if it can apply there. Okay, so it depends on, type of research, type of or area in which you are actually doing your research, right? So there is no like, correct answer, right or wrong, but these are just like, guidelines. Like, just consider these as guidelines. Whatever I'm discussing today, these are guidelines. It's nothing that what I'm saying is the only way. It's not the only way. Okay, there can be many ways. I am trying to show you some guidelines that I have experienced myself. Okay, so the number one part, now let's say the prerequisites, you want to start writing a journal article, right? So the number one thing is you have to first understand what is the structure. Okay, so what is the structure? I want to write something. What should be the structure of writing? As I already mentioned, in, like, in school days, we have experiments done in the science classes. So when we do the reports of those experiments, we have title, we have aim, we have apparatus, we have procedure, we have results, we have actually discussions, we have some questions, if you have any references. So what we do, we make our report within that structure, right? So there is a structure for an article that we want to write. So according to the standard structure, like, people who have written articles throughout the world, they have not proposed, they have actually they are giving you a guideline which is called as IMR A and D, means IMR and D. Okay, so I stands for introduction, M stands for material and methods, R stands for results, and D stands for discussion and conclusion. So in the article that we are planning to write, You have to focus on these 4 points. So your article should be structured in this manner: introduction, material, methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. This is the minimum. This is the minimum requirement. Okay. And if you want to think about the writing order, first start writing material and methods, because we have done some experiment. To do some experiment, we have chosen specific apparatus, and we have chosen specific procedures. Okay, so you already know that because you have did your experiments. You have actually did your experiments based on your proposals which you submitted to funding agencies, or probably to your PhD supervisors, or your your PG supervisors. And then so you already know why you're doing it, and how you're going to do it, and what you need for that, right? So that is the most easy part which you should start focusing on, because it has very much number of knowns than unknowns. So it is always good to focus on knowns and leave the unknowns right now on the side, right? So because if you start thinking about the unknowns, then you will have an anxiety, and then you will start procrastinating, and you will you might not actually end up writing your paper. You might give up. So focus on known ones. The most important thing, the most important points are the known ones, which are included in materials and methods and results. Because when you do something, you might get some results, and you focus on that, right? So you can write these first as you are doing your experiments and collecting the results. Very simple. Everyone should be doing it. Anyways, you do it because you have to do a report. You have to report it to your supervisor. You have to report it to the funding agency. So you have to do it anyways, right? So let's do it in a nice way here. Let's start doing it. Let's start the first step of writing an article with these 2 points. The next is, once those are actually done, once you're comfortable with them, once you have actually reviewed them through your supervisors or through your peers, then you can start on working on introduction, discussion, and conclusion. Okay, so introduction, discussion, conclusion, these points will come only after material and methods and results, once you have completed them. Okay, so write these sections next, once you have had a chance to analyze your results, have a sense of their impact, and have decided on the journal you think best suits your work. Okay, the last that you want to focus on is title and abstract. Okay, usually people, what they do, oh, let me choose a title, let me write an abstract. Okay, no, this is the last thing. Title and abstract might change over the time. It is a very dynamic topic. So you can change your title, you can change your abstract, but the method, material, results, discussion, conclusions, these will not vary much over the time, but the title and abstract will evolve. Okay, so don't worry about that right now. When you want to write a paper, this is the last one you want to focus on. So write your title and abstract last, as these are based on the other sections. Following this order will help you write a logical and consistent manuscript. Okay, this will be the way if you want to actually dig in into the reputed journals. Use the different sections of your MS to tell a story. You should have a story. Like when we go see a movie, when we go watch a movie in a theater, or probably in in our home through Netflix or OTG platforms, you will always like to watch something which has a story. If it doesn't have a story, you'll say like, yeah, mera time waste ho gaya, main faltu mein like all these things are going to come, right? So the same way, when you are writing a paper or an article, there might be someone who's going to read it, right? So he or she should feel that, oh yeah, there is a story in this. Okay, so there should be a complete story from the start to the end, and that is very important. Okay, so when you want to write a paper for a reputed journal, so now let's consider that you already got the right manner, the order, and the structure of your article. So let's look into these points into somewhat details. Now I have very short time, so I'm not going to go in too much depth. So number one, title, abstract, and keyword, right? So the title of your MS is usually the first introduction readers will have to your work. So first impression is last impression. you send your paper for a review, you share your paper with someone, they will look at the title and they will look at the abstract. So that has to be done very carefully. It should grab attention. It should have accurate description, of the entire story of your manuscript. So you write it at the end, but it has to be done very carefully. Okay, it has to be in a manner that it will grab attention. It will actually portray the story in a short format. Okay, so it should convey the main topics of the study. So it should focus on the study. It should highlight the importance of the research, like why you're doing this research. It should be concise, means it should not be too lengthy. There is actually a limit how big it should be, like it can vary from 256 words to 512 words, okay, for the abstract. And for title you can have between 15 to 25 words. Okay, so it has to be like all these journals, they will have guidelines and you have to follow their guidelines. These guidelines might vary to some extent here and there, but this is actually the average, right? So, and it should attract the readers. So as long as you can do this, your first step is actually done in a proper way. Okay, so again, the abstract must outline the most important aspects of the study while providing only a limited amount of detail on its background, methodology, and results. So you should not focus too much on your background, methodology, and results. Okay, but you should still have some points related to those. Author needs to critically assess the different aspects of the manuscript and choose those that are sufficiently important to deserve the inclusion in the abstract, right? So you take the lines from your manuscript apart from the section in the abstract and you start populating it in the abstract. That is what we do, and we have to do it at the end. Okay, and then we finalize the title. We finalize the title at the very end. Okay, so the abstract structure varies between journals and between types of articles. Authors should check that the abstract of their MS is consistent with the requirement of the article type and journal. Okay, so this varies, I already mentioned. So you have to be very keen about what are the requirements of the journals. Okay, now keywords are also used in the the papers, the manuscripts, the articles. Now what does the keyword do? So the keyword are the tools to help indexers and search engine to find the relevant papers. If the database can find them, then a reader will easily find them. Now this topic will be probably discussed by the next speaker of today's session. So let me just go to the next section. Okay, just remember that you need to have the keywords. Okay, and they should represent the content of your manuscript, and you should be very specific. It should be very specific for your field or the subfield. Okay, so these are the 2 points. And what is the use of it? It will help for indexing, okay, and for searching. So now we'll go to the introduction. So introduction should have readers with the background information needed to understand your study and the reasons why you conducted your experiments. The introduction should answer the question, what question problem did you study? So this is very important. What should be in the introduction? It should set the background of the study. They should understand why you're studying and what are the reasons of doing this study. Okay, so while writing the introduction, make sure your citations are well balanced. So like in the introduction section, we usually we cite done by this researcher previously, some this and this et al did this, or they used this method, you cite it, right? So you want to focus on how many you want to cite, what should be the number of citations. They should be current, they should be current in the last 3 to 5 years. They should be relevant, means we can just put any reference, right? It might not be relevant to the statement that you're making in your introduction section. No, that should not be the case. It should be relevant, it should be current, and it should be well balanced. Means you don't want to put so many references just on one topic and very few on some other points. Okay, so you have to balance them. Okay, so that is very important. The final thing to include at the end of your introduction is, this is the most important, that you should have a clear and exact statement of your study aims. Means through this research, we want to, or the authors of this research want to, study this or identify this or conduct experiment to identify this, and it should be related to the null hypothesis or the hypothesis, right? So when you're doing it, yeah, it's a null hypothesis. If it didn't happen, then it's an alternative hypothesis, right? So it should be related to that. The aim and the objective should be very clear, and that should be the last part of your introduction. After that, you directly jump to the next section. The next section is the one that I mentioned. You have to write it at the start. Methods and materials, right? You start with it because that has the known part, the very, very, very known part. The material method section provides the reader with the details on how you conducted your study. It should have, it should be built using subheadings to separate the different methodologies. Means in some papers, like, the author or the team of authors might have tried different methodologies. So they should not write it all together. They should have a different subheadings, different paragraphs. They should be segregated. They should be segregated and structured in a logical manner, which should have a flow, good flow. Describe what you did in the past tense. So anything that you did in the material methods, it should be done in the past tense. Means the rule of writing in English, grammatically correct, you should actually use the past tense there. Describe new methods in enough detail that another researcher can produce your experiment. If you did something, the method that you have described in this section, it should be very clear that, let's say, if some other reader wants to replicate it, they should be able to replicate it. Okay. Number 3, describe established methods briefly and simply cite a reference. Like, let's say if you're in your journal article, you said that, okay, we used a support vector machine, okay, or some technology from to support some different methodology for a marketing strategy in management. So that strategy, that actually method, who used it before, or who actually is the one who invented it or who discovered it, you should cite that. Or support vector machine, what is support vector machine? SVM. Okay, but what is it? Okay, so you have to have a citation there. I did k-means clustering. Okay, k-means clustering. No, you have to have a citation. What is k-means clustering? Okay, and it can be an old citation, the first one, the very, very, very first one, who started with that method. Okay, if it is an established method. And then you have to also list all the statistical tests. If you did a Q test, if you did a T test, if you did a P test, okay, if you used R square, if you used RMSE, if you used SD, if you used variance, if you used a mean population. So all the statistical tests that you're doing and the parameters that you're using in the test, they have to be stated in that material and method section. It has to be there, okay, if you're using them. Some journals, some publications we write, maybe we don't use much statistics. Okay, so if you don't use, don't worry about that. But if you have used it, you have to put it in the material and method section. Okay, this has to be there. It should not be in the result. It should not be in the discussion. It should not be in the conclusion. It has to be in the material and methods only. It cannot be elsewhere. Okay. Then results, right? The second part, which we have to start writing after material methods. So result section, simply state what you found, but do not interpret the results. Means, let's say in this test, what we found, the mean value of people who were affected by COVID in Sangli was, let's say, 10,000. Okay. Now you don't say because this was only 10,000 because we don't have many old age populated people in Sangli, or you don't say that, you don't describe any of that. You just say from your experiment, from your test, from your survey, you say the mean value of COVID patients identified in Sangli were 10,000. Why was it 10,000? How was it 10,000? It's not a concern about the result section. That you have to discuss in the discussions and conclusions. Okay. So this is what you have to remember. Like, result means whatever it is, just like that. Like the people, the people who are lawyers, they come up with some evidence. This is the evidence. That's it. Why this evidence came, how it came, from where it comes, that's a different thing. This is the evidence. This is what it is. Okay, so that has to be included in the results, nothing beyond that. Or sometimes, you know, you have some things in your tables, then again in you, whatever you're showing in your table, again you start writing. Okay, don't do that. It's a replication. Whatever you're showing in the table, you just say, like, you know, table number 1 illustrates blah 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 blah. Okay, that's it, it's done. You don't need to explain what is that table in detail. Anyone who's going to look at the results section, if they will have figures or if they have tables, graphs, charts, they will anyways understand that, because people who are experienced, they will only read your articles. And why they want to read your articles? Because they want to probably do something similar, they want to do a follow-up on that, right? Or they want to review it, so they will be experts. So don't worry about trying to tell them in depth, okay, we did like this, this was the result, this was the result because this. No, don't say anything, you don't need an explanation. Okay, so this is very important. When you write your result section, do not duplicate data among figure, table, and text. A common mistake is to restate much of the data from the table in the text of the manuscript. Okay, now if you do this, your paper is rejected. If the person finds this in the result section, the reviewer finds it or the editor finds it, your paper is rejected. Okay, right away, straightforward. Include the results of statistical analysis in the text. So don't do any statistical analysis in a table form. You include the results in the text. If it is, like, you know, only for statistical, by providing the p-values, you know, the p-value less than 0.05, p-value is like, you know, greater than 1. So means it is a, you know, it is a null hypothesis, or you need to have an alternative hypothesis, right? Those things. So you have to write them in the text, and you have to actually describe it. You have to describe it in the text. Okay, that you have to really do it. Then discussion and conclusions, right? Introduction, discussion, and conclusions. Material, methods, and results. You're done with your material and methods. Now you're done with your introduction. Now you want to focus on discussion and conclusions. Now discussion and conclusions will have everything related to your results, like, you know, the background of the results, the foreground of the results, and how they are related to your aim, how they are related to your objectives, and why you did the study. And because you did the study, that's why, you know, we can prove that this and this happened, and you know, all those things, like discussion. And you can also say, like, you know, maybe we need another study, we need a follow-up of this study to actually come up with some better conclusions. So all these things have to be included in the discussion and the conclusions. In other words, the majority of the discussion and conclusion section should have an interpretation of your results. Why my results are like this? Did you had a systematic error? Did you had a random error? Like, you know, was there something because of that your data was not, you know, generated in a proper manner, and that's why my results are not that you know, great. If you found something like that, that's, you know, the negative part, you should write it in the discussions. You know, you did an experiment, but maybe the outcome was not great. Why was it not great? Okay, maybe we need to do a follow-up. You know, maybe I did some mistake. That's why my results are like this while conducting the experiment, while conducting the study. So the next person who might actually do a follow-up, he should not be doing the same mistakes, or who should not be repeating the same mistakes. Or if they found something new, okay, yeah, we should be doing this should be a great thing, like, you know, maybe we want to start commercializing what we found in this research. That next person can actually take it for a further research, right? So these things should be in your discussion and conclusion sections. Okay, so compare your results. Again, you should also compare your result with other studies. Like, you know, in your introduction part, in your literature review part, you have already cited those references. So is your results better than them? Is your results similar to them? Is your results actually worse than them? You should find it, identify it, and discuss it in the discussion, result and discussion sections. Okay, again, conclusion. Okay, briefly describe the limitations. You should I think I already talked about this. State how your results extend the findings of previous studies. You know, if there is actually some significance contribution compared to the previous studies, you should put that. You should put that, like, you know, how your result extended the findings of the previous studies. Okay, then the next part is, like, you know, in your manuscript, you will use figures, tables, images, graphs, right? So there are some guidelines. So number one, figures will actually be, part of image, data points, maps, schematics, for example. So images include scale bar. Whenever we have an image, you just don't put a blunt image. That image should have, considering labels for imported items, it should have scale bars. There should be indication of different colors and symbols. Like, if there are actually in your graph, you have like, 5 lines. What is the meaning of 5 lines? You should have one dotted line, one actually like, straight line, one actually crooked line, whatever. You should have a different color and symbol in your figures, images. Data plots, they should have label, x-axis, y-axis. If you have an alternative axis, like we call it as a secondary axis, you should have the labels. This is x-axis, this is y-axis, this is z-axis, this is secondary axis. There should be a unit, like, what is the unit on your axis? Meter, kilometer, kg, like, what is the axis? What is the unit? What quantity you're actually representing on your graph, on your data plot? Label and curves, data sets, and use a legible font size. Means don't use a tiny, like, where we have to use magnifier lens and like, look into it, like, like the way we watch some electronics parts. No, it should have a legible font. Okay, it should be readable, it should be visible easily. So all these are very important. Just don't put a figure with a graph that you actually just copy paste from Excel. No, you should make it nice in Excel. You should make it very nice, readable, representable, identifiable, and then only paste it in your manuscript. Okay. Maps, these days actually there is a lot of work related to mobility analytics. We are all doing things with related to maps, for even for management, for CSE. We are all dealing with maps. Everything is now on the map. We put things on the map, like, where I want to go. Okay, let's check it on the map. The pizza delivery guy wants to go, like, how far he reached. I ordered a pizza. When is he going to come? The Zomato person, when is he going to come? We see everything on the map. So the maps, they should include latitude and longitude. They should include the scale bars. You should be labeling the important items, and consider adding a map legend. Okay, I will show you these examples, like, in shortly. Schematics, if you have a schematics, like schematic, block diagram, line diagram, these are the different terms that we use. Schematic, you should label each item, provide a complimentary explanation in the caption and the main text. Okay, so if there is a schematic, you should be having detailed information in the caption, like, just don't put figure A illustrates the schematic. No, what is it illustrating, about? Just give some more details in the caption. Figure A, schematic of image processing using such and such device for capturing, after capturing images on such and such items, right? So you give some more explanation. Okay, when you have a schematic diagram, avoid image manipulation. Don't do manipulation on the images. You should have a good image. There are actually tools, they will identify if you're actually using or manipulating an image. If you're doing some Photoshop, you're taking an image from some other source and you're manipulating it, don't do that. In your research paper, don't do that. Okay, so images in the form of schematics, maps, data plots, or general pictures, the rules now, the guidelines, right? So figures and tables. Now table, it should be clear and concise. It should have a legend and it should have a caption. The data should be divided into categories clearly. There should be sufficient spacing. Hello, was there any concern?
No, sir.
Okay, sufficient spacing, like, if we, like, normally a table, what does it have? It has rows and columns. The first row should have the headings. The first column probably might have, the keys, the primary keys, or the numbers, serial numbers, right? So they should be very clear. There should be a logical spacing. There should be, like, logical separation. Like, when we use lines, we have a grid or something, like, you have to be very nice while making a table. Don't just make a table, copy paste it from Excel and do it in the, in the Word as it is. No, you have to fit to the window. You have to have the size. You have to actually set the size between each cells. like, in the row order or in the column order. So you can make it square, you can make it rectangle, the way you want it. You can have a good font there. You want to make some things bold, like the heading should be in bold. If there are headings, they should have a parameter or the value with its unit, like, what unit you're using, kg, sometimes, like, for example, or if it is in rupees, like $sign, or if for memory, like, kilobyte, gigabyte. So they should have the units, right? So units should be provided, and the font type size should be legible. Again, it should not be requiring a magnifier lens to someone who wants to read it, or to someone who wants to go through the data. Okay, so this is very important when you focus on tables. Now, this is very important when you want to write an article for a reputed journal. You have to put this effort. You have to seriously put a lot of effort in making these things as per the guidelines, as required by the journal publisher. Okay, if you miss any component, they won't like it, then the article gets rejected. Okay, so focus on this very, very, very carefully. Okay, you have to spend time on these components that you are going to add in your article. Okay, so they are very important. Then formatting, the last one is, like, once your paper is, like, populated with all the contents, all the headings, all the sections as per the required guidelines from the journal publishers, then now at the end you have to focus on formatting, and you should have a checklist. Okay, so this formatting is, again, the format is provided by the document or the online document called as instruction for authors. Someone who wants to write an article, get it published, they have to go through the instructions for authors. Okay, instruction for authors, you have to refer it, and then you have to create a checklist. Now, number one parameter of that checklist: have you obeyed all word and character limits? So let's say the guidelines, the instructions on the author of a journal called XYZ requires you should have an abstract not more than 512 words. You should have a title not more than 25 words. You should have a paper not more than 4,000 words. Okay, there is a limit. There is always many times a limit. The limit may vary from journal to journal, but there will be a limit on the word count or on the character count. Okay, so have you obeyed that? You go in the instruction authors, you measure these in your article or in your manuscript, you compare it, then you say, okay, I have obeyed all the word and character limits, like such as title, running title, abstract, manuscript, text. Okay, done. Number one, done. Great. Have you included all required sections? Like, the journals, they will ask you, you should have a title, you should have a name of authors, you should have the affiliation of those authors, you should have abstract not more than 256, you should have keywords not more than 8 words, you should have an introduction, you should have a material methods with subheadings, with a certain format, like, a heading, italic, bold, whatever, no, and the number series that you want to use. Does it have a conclusion? So you have to check, does it have all the sections required by the journal? Now, the major 4 sections are IMRAD, right? Introduction, material and methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. These are the 4. These are common. Each and every journal will minimum have these. Okay, apart from that, there might be more required by different publishers. So have you included all required sections? Have you met the language requirement? Language, we are writing an article in English. We are not anglophonic. Okay, we are matrubhashik, Marathi, Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, Gujarati. Okay, મને ગુજરાતી આવે છે, मला मराठी येते. Okay, मराठी, गुजराती, मेरे को हिंदी आती है, मेरे को पंजाबी आती है, right? But English, there are 2 forms of English. One is US and one is UK. Okay, so UK people, they will have a different way they write and read, or speak English, and Americans, they will have a different way they write, read, and speak English. Okay, sometimes there are some different countries like Australia, New Zealand, they also speak English. They have a different way, but they are more similar to UK. And India itself also, we are more similar to UK. US, they have a different way of speaking, writing, or exploring. So depending on the publisher of a journal, like let's say you want to publish in Science Direct, you want to publish in Sage Publications, you want to publish in Springer. Now all these journal publishers, they are from Europe. Okay, they will look more into like your language to be either like more from the US part, from the UK part. If you're publishing in Francis and Taylor, or if you want to publish in some other publishers which belong from North America like Canada, US, then you should be using the US way of writing. Now I'll actually explain this later. Okay, don't focus that. But so have you met the language requirement? It's very important. Okay, have you supplied all requested contact information? Now we give the name of the persons who are authors, but we've missed the affiliations. Probably we don't have the correct way of actually writing the affiliations. I'm going to show you those examples. Insert figures in correct location. Sometimes they will tell, okay, just put your figures tables at the end of the manuscript. Okay, don't put them in the body part. Keep them in the end. So then you have to keep them. You have to populate them in the end. Or sometimes they will ask, okay, provide them as separate files. And then when you provide them as separate files, they have to be given proper names for each files and the folders. So you have to follow those guidelines. Then have I followed it? Okay, this is the question. Have I correctly formatted the references? This is the most important thing again. References. We have a list of references. We have to follow the styling, the way we should actually list them. And it varies from journal to journal, but there are some reference editors like managers which it's a software tools. You can use them and you can manage them carefully, and I'll actually list them eventually. You have to also check, have I used the correct file format for your images? Some journals will say, oh, you should provide an image file, but it should be in PNG format. Don't give me in JPEG format. Sometimes they will ask, okay, give me in PDF format. Don't give me in JPEG format. So depending on that, you have to check, like, am I meeting these guidelines? Have you stated any conflict of interest? Let's say I had 5 authors in my article, and now I don't actually talk to the 5th author. Why? Because we had some issues. So now while writing this article, do you have any conflict? Okay, will he claim eventually his authorship in a different manner? Is there going to be any issues, any legal issues, right? So you have to state this. Do we have any conflict of interest? Have you included any regulatory ethics permissions? Like this actually more or less applies to people who are doing research in medical sciences. They use actually animals or people to do some studies, and they have to follow different ethics and rules. So let's not focus on this right now. Have you obtained consent from all authors? Now, when we add the name of authors on a paper that we want to publish, all the authors, do they agree? Okay, you have to have the consent form filled by the authors and signed by them. Okay, these days everything is done by emails. Now this point, English, right? UK English or US English. So in your institute, you can try to create a facility, physical facility, like a service provider. Get all these, you hire some people, or you actually appoint some people from your institute and get them trained for IELTS or TOEFL through training programs. This will help them to improve their English, right? So when we write our articles, we can give it to them, and then they can actually review it and they can fix the English, right? So this is one way some actually institutes do it, or type with existing service providers available in the market, or you paid services available by the journal publishers. For example, you want to publish a journal in a reputed, you want to publish an article in a reputed journal. They have this service, you have to pay them, but okay, so they will fix the English, the language component. Either from the US or the UK perspective. Or there are some tools like Grammarly.com, Paraphraser.io. Now, I doubt if they are going to steal your data, right? These are all data, snatchers. So whatever you type into them, they are going to take it, right, eventually. And it could be an issue. So you have to be very cautious while using these tools, but you can use them in parts. Okay. So this is actually the part, the knowledge part. Okay, so can I take a break of 2 minutes? Can I take a break of 2 minutes and ask you a short question? Like, let's not actually all together come suddenly with a lot of questions. Let me ask you, is it clear? Have you felt that you got some knowledge? Probably you might have already had it, but can I actually get a feedback? Like, was it okay for me to show this as a knowledge part of this session?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I, Dr. Neeta Deshpande, I am listening from the beginning, and this the IMRD, whatever the principle of writing the research paper, it's a very easy one. I have a doubt, sir, that I will ask later. But whatever
Okay.
now your development is clear, sir, very clear.
Okay, thank you so much, Deshpande ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, now let me continue. So the next part is more like hands-on. Okay, hands-on, but I cannot do hands-on, right? We are virtual. We are virtual. We are not meeting physical. Eventually, maybe if we get a chance in future, we might meet physical, and I can show you many things. Or you are always welcome to come to PVPIT Budgao, Sangli. Okay, Budgao, Sangli. You can come anytime, visit me in this institute. I work here from 10 o'clock to 5 p.m. On the slides, I have my phone number, my mail address. You can contact me, reach me via there too. Or the best part could be like, you can try to meet me through the organizers of this conference. I really appreciate Shivaji University Lead College fund, as well as VPI, MSR, everyone from this institute for organizing this session and allowing me to speak. So you can always reach to them, and again, then, try to see me through them, right? So whichever is feasible, possible for everyone. So next part now, like, hands-on. So hands-on, now let's assume that you had all those prerequisites that I mentioned earlier. You had a super experimental design that you followed, and you conducted your experiments, and you wrote an excellent article or a paper or a manuscript by following all the guidelines I specified in the previous couple of 20 or 30 minutes, right? So now the next part is, it's painful, but it is important, because what we do is, many times we don't write things, we copy paste things. We are lazy, including me. Okay, I am not saying that I am actually different than you. We all are humans, we all are people. We try to find shortcuts wherever possible. So we do copy pasting. We don't read an article completely. We'll just take some line from that article and just put it here and cite it. Okay, now this is a problem. This is a very big problem. I mean, it's a super big problem. Even if you wrote a nice article, you followed all the guidelines, you followed the instructions to authors from the journals, you did a wonderful experiment, you had a good fund, that you mobilized to create the resources for doing that experiments. You had everything positive, not a single aspect negative in the previous part. And now you want to submit your article to a journal which you have already chosen. You have already made your mind, okay, I am going to submit my article to this journal. I've did my research already on Scopus, and I've checked, okay, it's a reputed one. And you submit it to them. The first thing what they do is they will check your article, and it is done automatically. They will check for plagiarism. Plagiarism means if you are taking text, image, figure, data point, any content from some other source, and if you're putting it in your journal, article, manuscript that you're writing, and if you have not cited it properly, like, there is a way you have to cite it. You have to cite it, then it is not plagiarism. If you just put it and you didn't cite it, then it is 100% plagiarism. Okay, so if you didn't do a next step and you just submitted your article to a journal, they will check for flag, and if the flag content is more than, depends, some people can tolerate 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, up to 30%. Okay, nothing beyond than 30%. I have not heard any journal accepting flag content or similarity content more than 30%. Okay, so it depends from journal to journal. So it is more smart to first check, get your article checked by a flag detecting software. Okay, it is a tool. It checks for similarities. Okay, if there is similarities in text, now people from your branch might be more aware actually how to calculate the similarities, because you're from software engineering or software computer sciences. So I don't need to explain those. But what happens is you get it checked, and then it will show how much content is flagged. All right, and then you can change it either, or you should find a proper way to cite it. Okay, you can do both things. The second one is more easy. Just change it instead of finding a proper way to cite, because that can be again tricky. It can take a lot of iteration. So just change, rephrase whatever you found that is actually similar to what exists in the internet database for articles or for any other content. Just paraphrase it, phrase it, reword it. Okay, but then again, when you reword it, when you paraphrase it, then again it should not change the meaning. It should not actually implicate the story. It should not change the story, right? So you have to be very cautious. So it is a reiteration, it is a reiteration, iteration. And anyways, please remember, research. We are doing research. This re is word, this re is a word which is iterative, right? Search, research, research. It's a cycle, it's a circle. You will keep on doing it. We will do iteration. It is an iterative task. Don't feel tired, don't feel exhausted. We have to do it. There is no choice. Okay, so get your paper checked. Okay, I'm going to show examples. Okay, once I complete my slides, I'm going to show examples. I'm going to show you of a document which is actually showing plagiarized content and how you actually read it and how can you change it. Then number two, when, for example, we are Indians, we are Indians and we are very smart. Seriously, we are smart. We are very smart. I've seen actually people from the world, and we are the smartest ones. We can say that, but people have been saying it already. Bill Gates has mentioned, Indians are the creamy layers. Indians are the creamy layers. Those are the ones who built the company called as Microsoft, right? So we are very smart. Now, the best thing is you want to write a paper. Okay, you want to write an article. You chose a journal. You first check, that journal, you have to do a research. That journal should have normally it will have an editorial office. We call it as an editorial office. It can be a virtual one. It can be actually a physical one. Okay, they might be based in UK, US, Europe, right? Many other countries, or even India. Then you need to know who are the editorial board members. Among them, there are people which are called as editors in chief. Then they will have some assistants, which we also call as managing editors or assistants. There can be more than one number of editors in chief, and that's why more number of managing editors and their assistants. Then they will have technical editor, usually one person. They might have many associate editors, and then the technical editor as well as the associate editors will have their assistants, right? So this is the structure of the editorial system to whom you want to submit your journal, article, paper, manuscript, whatever you want to call. Then there is, so this is actually the scope of the editorial office. Now there is actually some people who we call as reviewer board. Okay, members of the reviewer board. They could be on the boundary of the editorial office, and they could be linked to the authors. So authors are not part of editorial office most of the times, but still there could be authors who are part of editorial office. Maybe an associate author. Editor could be an author who wants to publish in the same actually system. Technical editor maybe wants to do it. Editor in chief maybe wants to do it. So they could be, but I'm just saying that, okay, we are authors and we are not part of this editorial system, so I'm keeping us outside, right? So we need to know all this. before we want to submit an article. And many times what happens, like, when you choose a reviewer, the reviewer can be known to you, or sometimes it might not be known to you. And the reviewer will play a very important role in getting your paper published, reviewed, or improved, or whatever. Like, okay, so understand the editorial system, and before that, try to first understand the structure of the editorial office, the people who exist in this. Okay, do you see any people whom you know already? Can you contact them? Can you try to reach them? Can you try to give your paper, let them reviewed, get your feedbacks, and then, like, then you can submit. So that will actually help you to get published in a reputed one, right? So understand this system. Now, author guidelines, instruction for authors. So before you submit your article, I've already showed you, like, what you have to check. So in the author guideline, these are the points about the journal. If it is open access, if it is subscription, I will tell what this means. What is the peer review and ethics, like, how you have to prepare your paper, word limit, styling, publisher, editing, checklist, data sharing policy, all these points, you have to go through it. Before you submit your article, you should go through all this once more, twice more, thrice more. Okay, so now once you decided, okay, I've decided, I went through everything, I've checked the editorial system, I know the editorial board members, I know probably some reviewers from who belong to that. Now you decided, okay, so you decided you want to submit an article. There is a system, there is a computer based system. Some ones are called editorial manager, some ones are called actually Suzy. Like, there are different publishers who use different systems, right, where you submit your article. So this is an example I'm trying to show you. This system is called editorial manager. It has been taken by a journal called as Computer and Electronics and Agriculture. Now, in this journal, I have tried to publish 3 articles, and I'm showing it to you on purpose. All my 3 articles in which I was the lead author or I was the other author, they got rejected. Okay, there are reasons. I will explain you why they got rejected, so I know what is rejection. They were rejected. One on January 29th, 2021, so a little bit more than a year ago, and one like around 8 to 9 months ago. Okay, so they got rejected. Okay, but when you submit your article, this is the system. Through this system, you have to submit. I'm going to show you what are the different documents required while doing the submission. Maybe many of you know it already, but it could be helpful for those who don't know it. Okay, so after submission, once you submit, now mine got rejected, right? So what happened after submission process? Okay, now this itself is a big topic and it needs 1 or 2 more lectures. I don't have time right now, so I will not explain in detail, but I just want to show you 2 things, very important. They will do the initial check by professional in-house managing editor, which is the assistant to the chief editor-in-chief, to determine whether they are properly prepared and whether they follow the ethical policies of the journal. And the managing editor will consult the journal's editor-in-chief or associate editors to determine whether the manuscript fits the scope of the journal and whether it is scientifically sound. Okay, so mine got rejected. Why? One reason: the scope of the journal. The scope of the journal is based on the title of the journal, Computer and Electronics in Agriculture. These 2 papers which we tried to publish in this journal, we didn't had a computer. We had electronics. It is meant for agriculture, but it didn't had a computer. The apparatus, the setup, the system which we developed, and we did some experiments, didn't had a computer on board. If we would had introduced on computer on board and then we would had it added in the paper, then they would probably accept it for review, at least accept it for review. So these 2, they just got rejected. I submitted within a month, they got rejected. Why? Because they don't suit the scope of the journal, because it doesn't have a computer. Okay, this is a very highly ranked journal. It is very prestigious. If I would had one publication in this journal, now I know actually if I want to publish something, I should have something related to a computer. Hello. So because it says, right, computer and electronics, so and is a word. It should have a computer and electronics. Okay, it should not be only computer or it should not be only electronics. Computer or not, computer and. Both have to be there. That is the scope of the journal. Okay. So once the manuscript passes, let's say if I was lucky, if I had a computer in that, then my manuscript passed through the initial checks. Then it will be assigned, it would have been assigned to at least 2 independent expert peer review members. A single blind review is applied where author identities are known to the reviewers, but not known to the authors, right? So authors don't know who are the reviewers. This is single blind. The double blind is the authors, neither the reviewers know each other. Okay. So peer review comments are confidential. I'm going to show you examples, and will only be disclosed with the express agreement of the peer reviewer. There is another one called as open peer review, where people, author and reviewer, both can know what are the comments, and they are actually published online. So this is something new happening. Okay. Now let me just stop here. I don't want to focus too much on this, but just like, I've shown you, I have published many papers, but I've also got a lot of rejections. I know what is a rejection. I know what is the pain of a rejection, but I did not stop. I tried other journal. I fixed my, what is missing. You just keep on doing, you keep on working, you keep on iterating, you keep on marching ahead. You don't give up. If you want to publish in a reputed journal, don't give up. We have published one in SCI indexed. It took us 2 years. We had like 3 rejections for 3 different journals. And then finally it got into an SCI index. You can imagine what is an SCI, Science Citation Index. That is the super highest, the one before the Nature, right? Nature is the most prestigious journal. So if we can publish at least one in Nature, we're done in our life, right? So this SCI is something lower than a Nature. But I have one. We have one. We tried, we pursued, we actually got it. Okay. So now, for example, I was telling, we are Indians, we are too smart. Okay. So before submitting the answer, first we want to know what are the questions. If we know what are the questions, we can make up the answers. Even if we didn't know the answers, we will find the answers and we will make up the answers. And if we know the guidelines, if we knew the guidelines in which we should be putting our answers, then we can definitely go very quickly. This is actually the beauty of actually Indian people, all of us, including me and you. So the questions, what do the editors and reviewers expect? You want to write an article, you followed all the rules and guidelines and everything, but they will first check, is there originality, is there novelty, is there a significance content, is the manuscript having a presentation quality, means the formatting is good, the structure is good, everything is in the guidelines, as per the guidelines. Does it have a scientific soundness? Means, are we really using science here? If you're using science, are we really putting the equations, putting the the known actually theorems, are we actually applying them, right? So is it having any scientific soundness? Does it really interest the readers? And there is a rubric. So for all these 5 parameters, is it high, average, low, no answer? So usually a manuscript should be covering these 5 aspects and should get a rating on the rubric for all 5, at least the average one. Okay, if there is someone in the no, or quality of presentation is not good, scientific soundness is not good, interest to the readers is not good, then it's not good. Okay, so it will go reconsider after major revision. Okay, this is the decision recommended by the reviewer. If all are average, then they might still have this, but there is a greater chance that the editors will accept, because after the submission process, what happens, the reviewers will review and the reports will be given to the editors, and then the editors will go through the review reports. They will actually talk to the the associate editors, they will talk to the managers, assistants, and then they will come up with a decision. Now, for example, as I said already, me Marathi आहे, तुम्ही सगळे कदाचित मराठी असेल किंवा गुजराती असेल, कन्नड असेल, तुमची मातृभाषा इंग्लिश असली तर तुम्ही म्हणणारा येस आय एम अँग्लोफोनिक. तुमची माझी मातृभाषा इंग्लिश नाही आहे, मग मी तर काय म्हणणार, आय डोंट फील क्वालिफाईड टू जज अबाउट द इंग्लिश लँग्वेज अँड स्टाईल. Okay, many people will consider that okay, this paper is a good, the reviewer that we found, but he's also not that good at English. Okay, fine, they will find another reviewer who is expert in that language aspect, and then they will actually look into that. It is not my job, for example, as a reviewer. But if I'm submitting as an author, I should focus on these 5 parts: quality, significance, quality of presentation, scientific soundness, and interest to the readers. If my paper will get a rubric rating in the first 2 columns, all of them, if they are actually coming there, then my overall merit will be high, and then my paper has a greater chance to get accepted. Okay, again, apart from that, they should also have, does the introduction provide sufficient background and include all references? So the introduction part, as I mentioned, it should have the citations, they should be balanced, they should be like the current ones, they should be the relevant ones. So there will be a rubric, we will check that as a reviewer. Any reviewer will have to check that. Is the research design appropriate? The first thing, when you're doing a paper, you should have an appropriate research design. That will be again checked with the rubric, right? Are the methods adequately described? So the material method section, was it properly described? As a reviewer, do I really understand it? Are the results clearly presented? It means the results means you don't actually give the explanations, just state the results, right? So have you did that? Are the conclusions supported by the results? Conclusion, discussion will be supported by the results. So are they? So these are the questions. You know the question, you format your paper with the correct answers to these questions so that you fit in the rubric on the left part, of the grades or the points, then for sure your paper should get published. There should be no way why not. Okay, so then there are some more expectations. Do you have a potential conflict of interest? Now what happens, maybe let's say you wrote a paper and I'm a reviewer and I had a fight with you, like we, like let's say me and Desai madam, we probably know each other, but then suddenly we had a fight. Now I wrote a paper as an author, and fortunately or unfortunately she became the reviewer. Now she will know if it was a single blinded. She knows, okay, I know this author, hey, I have a conflict of interest. She will not say that I will have a conflict of interest. She will say that I will not have a conflict of interest. No, she should be saying it, or as an author, you should be actually like, when you submit your article, you can list the name of the people with whom you think that there could be a conflict of interest. And please don't choose them as the reviewers. You can suggest the system, right? So did you detect plagiarism? Again, as a reviewer or editor, I can also check if there is a plagiarized content, right? So even sometimes the software tools, they will find it, but maybe sometimes they will miss it. So I will also check that. So you have to be very cautious with this plagiarized content. Did you detect appropriate self citations? Now, maybe I'm an author and I put all my papers I wrote so far in my paper that I'm submitting right now. The new edition, and I'm just citing all of them, right? So as a reviewer, I'll need to check it. So don't add your cited references, your own references. You can add few if they are relevant, if they are from the current year, the current 4-5 years. If they're really needed, then just add them. If not, don't add them, because then they might refuse your paper, like in the decision session, right? So do you have any other ethical problems, like this let's not discuss it right now, so forget it. So then once your paper was submitted, it was actually suggested for 2 reviewers, it got reviewed, you got the good grades, for the rubrics in the left side, then there will be a decision taken by the editor in chief. And there are 4 decisions: accept after minor revision, reconsider after major revision, reject and encourage resubmission, and reject. Okay, so this reject is the most scary one, because you did so much work, you did so much, you put so much effort, and your article got rejected, right? So this happens, but don't worry too much. Okay, if you felt sad, okay, feel sad. But then at the start, if you really worked hard, if you really followed the author guidelines, then it might not happen. You might fall into the first three: accept after minor revision, reconsider after major revision, reject, and encourage resubmission. So these are the three ones. These are the three ones which are the nice ones. The last one is the worst one. The second last one still implicates, oh yeah, there is a chance. If I do some changes, then yeah, I will actually get it published, right? So these are the decisions. Now, once the paper got accepted, there is some production and publishing related things, so professional copy editing, English editing. So all this has to be done. They will send the paper back to you. You have to check it thoroughly, and then you have to tell them, okay, finally done, I'm happy, please publish it. And then the publishers will publish it, right? So take home message. Take home message: choose the journal, spend time on understanding their authors, draft a paper, create a neat and clean diagrams in appropriate tools, creating tables, creating figures, perform the data analysis, creating equations, creating the citation, reference list, formatting all above, and everything as per the publisher's template, checking the content through plagiarism tools, revising the draft, drafting the cover letter, creating and providing a list of potential reviewers, completing all types of forms, submitting to the journal using the online submission system, waiting for acceptance from the review from the chief editor, waiting for reviews from the reviewers, discussing the reviews with the technical specialists from your scientific world by offering them pay, responding to each reviewer by preparing the reply document for each, revising the manuscripts according to the reviewer suggestions, resubmitting the manuscript for second review, waiting for response based on second review to do similar things, resubmit manuscripts again, waiting for the response. If paper accepted by the chief editor, then wait for the final proofread and making final edits with the production team. If paper gets rejected, then start the process from the start by choosing another journal. So these are all the steps that you have to go through when you want to publish an article in a reputed journal. And if the decision was rejection, then don't get sad and just just start your wheel again. You keep on rotating until you find the final break and you have to stop, right? So this is a take home message. Now, the best strategy that I actually did in my life was not always you have to publish in an article in a journal, right? You can publish it as a poster. You can present it in a conference. And then what you actually got from your poster and from your conference, you because it gets reviewed, not actually officially, but verbally. And then you can use that, filter all the things, and then you can draft an improved version and then submit it to the reviewed journal. So this is also another good approach. You refine your article by initially presenting it as a poster format, then presenting it in a conference format, and then submitting it to the peer-reviewed journals, right? So this is what I've been doing for the last 20 years. I have a lot of posters, I have a lot of conferences, proceedings, and then I also have a lot of journals, right? So keep trying, don't give up, all the best. Now the next take-home message I wanted to mention. So to include someone as a co-author, because I've seen in India, people just add this name, add his name, add her name. We are all authors. Are you really, is it ethical to add names of people as co-authors? What is the contribution? Did they contribute in the research conception? Did they contribute to do the analysis? Did they contribute in interpretation, or did they contribute in writing of the paper? So if they contributed in either of these four, this is what the reputed journals will check thoroughly. Okay, so there are some ICMG guidelines. You can click on the link and then learn later why authorship matters, who is an author, non-author contributions. Okay, so take home message, for example, this is a paper I published a couple of years ago, Precision and Accuracy of Wisner. This is related to science. I do science, and then I published with people from different actually countries. Like one, I had a co-author from Canada, from Australia. And so this is my paper. We are all co-authors. We are all co-authors. I'm the lead author, the first author. So author contribution. What was my contribution? I was the key author. I wrote the original draft. Okay, ND is mine. I reviewed and edited it. I wrote the data analytic code. I did the data collection. I did the data processing. I did the data pre-processing. So these were all my contributions. in this paper, and all these reputed journals, they will ask for this. You need to specify this. Okay, they should have a funding component, like why you writing this article, where did you get the funds from, who sponsored, what was the grant number. So anyone who you think is not eligible to become a co-author, you should add their name in the acknowledgement section, and you should also declare the conflict of interest. Okay, so these are the 4 things which are very important in highly reputed journal. They will ask this question. You should have an answer to this question. Okay, so if someone is not eligible to become an author, co-author, but he had some contribution apart from those 4, add them as a acknowledgement. Okay, so take home message 2. For example, I do work in a clustering tool. I developed one software, and then I try to write an article. I first wrote it as a poster, then I wrote it as a conference proceeding. I had 3 conference proceedings, and then I actually got sick. I had some health issues, and then I could not complete my journal article, right? So then someone else took over that, and they wrote the article. Now I didn't write the article, and what they did, the software that I developed using another platform. This author of this article, he took another tool, right? So then I could have been the co-author, but according to the ICMGA guidelines, I am not eligible, right? So I was added in the acknowledgement section. We would like to thank Nandkishor Dhawale, graduated from McGill University, for implementing the earlier version of the NS algorithm in MATLAB. Okay, now they did it in Python. When I did it in MATLAB. They wrote the paper. I could have been the co-author, but according to the ethics, it was not ethical. So my name is added into the acknowledgement section, right? So this is very important. This is ethic. This is about the ethics. Just don't add names. You have to contribute. Okay, so that's all. Thank you so much. I would like to acknowledge PVPIT Budga Sangli, my principal, NCS trustee and chairman, for allowing me leave on today for contributing in this activity. And I would like to thank VPIMSR Sangli, all management, office, administration, teaching, non-teaching organizers and participants, as well as Shivaji University Kolhapur, and the fund which was actually utilized for this presentation. Okay, so don't forget the start. As I said, what you think is what you do, and what you do is what you get. So don't forget that we belong to the soils of this nation, where many of us historically believed in the super divine blessings. So stay blessed by concentrating, meditating on the super divine with faith to succeed even more. When we say we concentrate, we are educators, or we are part of the education system, so we can concentrate on learning and teaching. You don't need to do separate meditation. If you are attending a lecture session delivered by someone, and if you're meditating, means you're concentrating on the speaker, that is equivalent. You can get the knowledge, you can gain the knowledge, and no one can stop you to gain the knowledge, right? So with this, I would like to stop the session, at least the presentation. And if you have any questions, or maybe I could show you some examples, samples. So let me know, depending on the time that we have that is allowed, we can we can discuss further. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Dr. Dhawale, sir, for your valuable input, sir. And sir, you have explained very nicely how to do the scientific research, sir. So thank you so much, sir. So on behalf of VPIMSR and all the participants, I would like to give you a big clap. Thank you, sir. Now, participants, you can ask the questions to experts. Please raise your hand, unmute yourself, or put the question in the chat box.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Please.
Dr. Neeta Deshpande here, sir. Thank you for such a wonderful session. It was really great, sir. Let me say this is one of the most terrific training in the how to write a research paper I have ever attended, sir. To keep motivation on the notes and which you have shared the PPTs, if it is possible, please send so that I will keep on my desk, and so daily I have a glance of the same and helps me to keep the momentum on to write the research paper. That is scientific research paper. Thank you very much, sir. I have one question, sir. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Listening.
Sir,
Thank you.
actually, I belongs to the commerce fraternity, so in the banking sector itself. So I have to write a research paper considering the data which is available on the trends and progress reports of RBI. So we have to consider 15 years or the 10 years data. So is it necessary to insert the tables? Because some journals, as you said, they have the word limitation. If I inserted the table of 15 years to check the trend, okay, for the trend analysis, so directly can we go through this, whatever you have told the IMRD without giving the tables, sir?
Yeah, actually, it's a good question. I'm not from a commerce background, but I did work in special and temporal data analysis. So your thing, so I did some work in forecasting, and probably your question is related to that. So you have a temporal data, temporal in the sense you have a data set that is coming from last certain number of years.
Yes.
And
Yes,
what you want to do is you want to probably do some data analysis on that, and then you want to probably analyze it, and you want to come up with some conclusions. So in that sense, you don't need to put the data in the paper, but when you submit the manuscript using the system, they have a special place where they will say, like, attach your data.
Okay.
Or you can say that, like, you can the data can be provided upon request. Means you specify that you can email me or call me over the phone, and I can give you the data if it is needed.
And
But
even
then
we can
again,
give the link also, sir, because that data
Yes.
is available on the trends and progress report.
Yes,
That
so
is
if there
RBI
is
data.
so if you have the data available somewhere else, you can give the link there. But maybe you might not be taking the data as it is, right? So the data you might be taking, but then you might be applying different filters depending on what study you want to be doing,
Yes,
right?
sir, definitely.
So
Yeah.
that's why you have to have the pre-processed or the processed data, and you should be storing it somewhere else, and then you should be providing that, because that is going to be the
Yes.
part of the research that you did, right?
Yes, sir.
So that
Especially
is
while
one
we
thing.
are doing the longitudinal study, no, we get a lot of problems because word limitations are there, and once we are giving 2-3 data comparatively, so word limitation over there, whatever we want to give the results or the analysis part, discussion part, that will be less. That's why I'm asking, sir. So not
Yes,
necessary
so sometimes what they do, so what the data that you have, instead of creating a table, you can create a graph, which we call it partial auto realization. Auto realization is like, how the data looks like in the form of graph.
Yeah, sir.
And you can create a figure, and then that in the figure caption, you can provide the link where the data exists and what data was used to create this figure. That you can do, which it will not consume a lot of actually space or the words or the limits.
Okay. Very
So
nice.
it is
sir.
called
Thank you very much.
partial auto realization. You do that technique.
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir. Very
Thank
nice
you.
sessions. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else has a question?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dhawale, sir. Unless most of the doubts may be clear because we have explained very nicely. And because of time restriction, we need to move to the next part of this session, that is vote of thanks. And participants are requested You can put your questions in the chat box. We will forward all the questions to the Dr. Dhawale sir, and definitely he will help you or guide you regarding your doubts. So thank you. Now, I would like to request Dr. Kalyani Sarunke Madam to conclude session and propose a vote of thanks. Over to you, Kalyani ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon to one and all present here. On behalf of VPIMSR, I would like to thank all the participants, as well as I need to present as well as express my vote of thanks to all the members. Okay. So for the today's session, especially I would like to thank our guest, Dr. Dhawale sir, Nandkishor Dhawale sir, for accepting our invitation and for being here with us. Okay. So thank you, sir. We are really enlightened with your knowledge as well as the information which you have presented, where you have presented as well as you have highlighted some points like hypothesis, how to search a reputed journal, how to consider a citation point, as well as how a aim and objective of the paper is important, where we need to consider a structure like IMRAD, as well as how to consider a access over the editing points as well as to technological application. So once again, I would like to thank you, sir, on behalf of VPIMSR. Thank you, sir. As well as I would like to thank our principal, sir, Dr. R.A. Shinde, sir, Professor in charge, Dr. M.M. Ali, sir, and convener of the session, Dr. R.M. Elati, sir. Thank you, sir. As well as last but not least, all the staff members who has contributed for the session, as well as the